Hi, I'm Christoph, and here we are back with GPT-5. This time, no rumors anymore. This time, we can talk about our first impressions, our tests, and the reality check of what OpenAI really was delivering. GPT-5 was, I think, one of the most hyped AI events of this year, or in general. Everybody had very big expectations of GPT-5, and the reason for that is because also Sam Altman was really hyping it up a lot, comparing it to the Manhattan Project, like the atomic bomb moment where they say, oh, what have we done? But so there were some big expectations, and always when there are big expectations, or often when there are big expectations, it's sometimes really hard to deliver then also on that. And we want to see what they actually have delivered, how the model is comparing to other models out there, how big forward is the leap, and what's good and what's bad. And I think we should really start. I think a very good thing is that it's free for all users. That means free users, plus users, pro users, they all gonna get access to GPT-5. We know that. I mean, GPT-5 is out now for a week approximately. What it brings with it is deeper thinking, faster responses, and there's also now a Google Calendar and Gmail integration, which I guess a lot of people would like to play around with and use it like this. And yeah, so after the event, there was a lot of backlash because they were making some decisions which I think were quite harsh, especially if you have such a large user base with hundreds of millions of users. They were basically directly deactivating all models for every user. So you could only choose between GPT-5 and GPT-5 Thinking. So there was no O3 model anymore. There was no 4O Mini whatsoever. A lot of people didn't like that. There was kind of an emergency Reddit where Sam Altman then also declared that GPT-4o will come back for paid users to select. Then also, while the model seems to be quite cheap, as we will see later in the video, they had to double their rates because that was kind of also a trick in the game. Let's say maybe corporate-wise good decision to make more profits. There were problems with routers, so that GPT-5, as we will later see, was not switching too often to the thinking model, so basically the performance was not so good. And we also have chat mix-ups and hallucinations where the model writes something just from a different chat and brings into another chat. So that's what's currently happening. Of course, Sam Altman promises that they will make things better. So what they have actually shipped is that, as we said also in the rumors already, it's a unified model, but it comes with a router. That means the model decides before. It's kind of a chain thought process. So first it checks, hey, what's the task? What should it do? And then decides on if it will think harder or deeper about the problem, or if it just gives out straight the answer. So the great thing about this, you have, in general, a faster speed of answers. But the problem is, right now, more often it decides that it actually uses a lower model, which is not as smart as GPT-5 itself. It uses GPT-5 Mini, but we'll also get later into that. A good thing is that the model now supports 400,000 of context window. So this is sadly still far away from the at least 1 million token window, which we would have expected. But still it's a decent gain from the previous models. So in general, also we see better UX. There is a new voice capability for all users, free tier users as well. There are, in general, new personalities, and there are improved safety and security measurements, although actually it is already proven that it's still fairly easily to jailbreak GPT-5, although they were saying a lot of things about the security measurements. And there should be reduced hallucinations. So all that sounds good, of course, on paper, but there were some problems. Right now, the router rarely promotes the thinking mode itself. With this, the quality drops significantly on complex tasks, and there are always silent downgrades to the mini variant of the model, causing noticeable changes in tone, quality, during the chat itself. Yeah. So the best way is to say before you start writing a prompt, hey, please think hard on this, and then go further with the prompt. So it really tries to activate the thinking model instead of the smaller model potentially. And then there was also during the live stream session the weird chart moment where GPT-5 was shown compared between OpenAI O3 and GPT-4. While the score with thinking was 74.9% and from GPT-5, and the score from the O3 model was 69.1%, while the GPT-4o scored 30.8%, so that should be at least half of that. And here the 52.8, these seem to be, they are higher than the 69.1. Of course, these things can happen, but yeah, it's multi-$100 billion company. So I think that was kind of a fun glitch, which, as we can see, always can happen. So there have been also some price changes since the launch of GPT-5. When they launched, they gave different limits for the different tiers. The free users were allowed to have 10 messages a day, renewed every 5 hours, while you could choose the thinking model once a day. And the Plus users, they could get 80 messages from the normal GPT-5 chat versus up to 200 messages per week for the thinking model. And the Pro users, they have basically unlimited chats for all the models. Then the upgrade changed. We got now still 10 messages for free users, 1 message for the thinking model, but we got double the messages in the Plus plan. So that means we get 160 messages and then still 200 messages every week. And when we have an upgrade to thinking in the auto mode, where it automatically switches to thinking, then this doesn't count into these messages. Yeah, that's also quite good to know. And there's also interesting wise the Teams plan, which is only $25, so only $5 more than the Plus plan, which has then the unlimited chats for the model. But here again, there you need to have at least 2 seats, so it's 2 times $25, but still currently cheaper than the $200 of the Pro plan. And API-wise, the pricing seems to be very attractive, especially for developers. So what does that mean? We get $1.25 per million token inputs and only $10 per million token output, compared to, for example, $75 of Opus 4.1. And for the input of Opus, I think it's about $15. So it's about 12 times cheaper. And of course, that makes a lot of difference if you are working on a bigger project. You have many hundreds of thousands of prompts or basically background agents working and so on and so forth. So that's really attractive for the user, for developers especially. First of all, building applications, for example, through Cursor or what other IDE with GPT-5 in comparison to, for example, Claude, which is so far the most favorite AI model for developers. And they really try to catch from Anthropic the user base and get them through lower tier pricing to OpenAI at the end. And a lot of developers potentially can save a lot of money when they put, for example, GPT-5 into their applications and let them run, because they might have lower costs. Benchmark-wise, we see that, for example, GPT-5 is almost on all areas ranking as #1. We have here in text, it scores with 1,481 points versus Gemini 2.5 Pro. In development, it also is above Claude Opus 4.1, which got released a few days before. Still scoring quite high above with 1,482 points versus the 1,426 from Claude, and then below Gemini 2.5 Pro, 1,405. And I think here we're going to see in the next couple of weeks maybe a new smaller update from Gemini, where we're going to see maybe raise the bar again above GPT-5. Then GPT-5 high scores in the vision benchmark, quite high with 1255, quite on par with the Gemini 2.5 Pro. So that's actually quite good. But as we can see, it's not this major leap, which I think a lot of people were expecting when it was coming to the launch, that, yeah, this big new LM magic will be here. But I think we are quite far from that. Though the expectations that it's continued to be the number one are quite low, as we can see from Polymarket, where you kind of can bet on an outcome. And here a user was asking, hey, which AI model will be the best in end of August? And before the release of OpenAI, it was actually quite good for OpenAI. Yeah, but it quite dropped to only 21%, and most people think that Google will be ahead of the race with 71%. So I guess also Google will deliver on that and bring out quite an interesting update in the next coming weeks. When we compare it in benchmarks to other models, we see that also, for example, in the AIME 25 benchmark, it scores highest with 94.6%. In comparison, for example, also to Gemini's 88%. Yeah, that's quite interesting to see. And also the low score with 46.4 score for GPT-4o. And so, yeah, we see here big jumps. Then mostly in the benchmarks, for example, here Frontier Math, GPT-5 is on top. Then also specifically for health benchmarks, it got very good answers and benchmarks results. SWE benchmark, it's number one with 74.9%, a bit above the Claude Opus 4.1, 74.5%. So do you really see the difference when you're working with the model? We saw some very good demos during the live stream where they one-shot programmed or vibe coded different applications, like from 3D model to a finance dashboard or an SVG animation. And we actually tried to rebuild what they were showing in the demo. And we were not able to fully recreate in a one-shot prompt their results, which were they showing to us. For sure, the new model got better, especially front-end wise. I think the design looks much better in comparison to other previous OpenAI models. That's for sure. But we also see that it's still not as perfect. And I'm not sure if testers who got already before the announcement of GPT-5 access to the model had maybe a more fine-tuned model that it's better, especially in programming, than which what got released now from OpenAI. Even when you're using the thinking model, there are a lot of bugs. When you try to fix them, it tries to rewrite the whole code, and it takes a lot of time. So for sure, it's not like a lovable killer. But Lovable itself, for example, integrated now GPT-5 already, so you can try and see the differences also between GPT-5 and Claude, for example, design-wise. And also I was using it directly with Cursor in this case, trying to work on an application, which I've been working in the last weeks, and using it instead of, for example, Sonnet 4.0 or Gemini 2.5 Pro, which was before my go-to model. OpenAI had a special offer with Cursor that when you were using the GPT-5, you could use it for free for 1 week after the announcement. So to that, I can say it's, of course, a very smart model. It works quite different in terms of replies. When you work with Gemini, I like the more detailed answers from Gemini itself, for example, or also Claude. And performance-wise, I think it's very good and can solve problems, is quite clear about it. But I want to see how long that leap forward will last, especially when we think of what's ahead in the coming weeks. So yeah, still an impressive model, but the outcome was not as good as maybe also shown from OpenAI on the stages. And I think that has also to do because they wanted to kind of manage the expectation. Also, when I was looking at the live demo and they were showing the results of the finance dashboard and how everything was working, I was like, hey, okay, wow, that's impressive. Let's try it out. And then you see, okay, it took like 5 minutes to rebuild, and the result is far off from what they were showing in terms of physics and so on. Where does ChatGPT 5 shine and where does it fall short? In general, the front-end taste, like the design, what it makes is much better. It also is more coherent on your prompt, what you're writing, than previous models. Yeah, it can hold longer the context through the bigger context window of 400,000 tokens. It has fewer hallucinations. At least that's what tests show. But as we have said before, right now there are some problems where it catches some information from another chat and puts it in the accurate answer. The router reliability should be improved. That's what Sam Altman promised, and I think we have to see that they will find the right balance between switching between the thinking mode and the non-thinking mode. Also, it's sad to see that they still don't have video processing in the multimodal LLM, so Gemini still has the crown. And in general, as a tip, always when you write the message and use the auto mode, so not directly the thinking mode, say, hey, think hard about this problem and then go further with the reply. Also check if you see that the answer is not consistent or is not as good enough as you expected, that you are within your rate limits, and maybe better wait or start another chat. So in general, we can say it is a meaningful upgrade, but of course, it's hard when you have such a big hype to really deliver on it. And I think it was hyped a bit too much, and maybe they should have called GPT-5, not GPT-5, but 4.8 or whatever. As we see, we have still this problem. Then they shouldn't have completely deactivated all models at once right after the start without people letting know and giving them some time to first try GPT-5, and we see there have been some also issues with that. So that would have maybe been the better decision. But for sure, what they have achieved is that a lot of people were talking about GPT-5 and comparing, and again, still, it's in most of the benchmark on #1. It's a smart model. It's good to work with. I still keep working right now with GPT-5. I do different tests in terms for text for our applications, our programs, and so on, both with Gemini and GPT, and still compare them. And I think we will see still changes and tone changes in the model over the coming months when OpenAI will continuously update the models. And so I think overall it was a good launch. It was just very hyped and there were a lot of expectations in the room. But still it's a great model, but still I can't wait to see what Gemini or Google will answer with and test it out then in comparison to GPT-5. What we're gonna do on this channel next is that we're gonna build an application on Lovable with GPT-5, and you can watch us how we do that. And I would love to hear what you think now about GPT-5. What do you think about it? Have you tried it out? Did you build an application with it? Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm very curious about it. If you're interested in AI and especially in finding out how you can really benefit from this AI race and monetize this also. So I'm looking forward to the next videos. Thank you for watching and see you soon.